losing my father. It'll be 10 years, August 3rd of this year, because it was sudden, it was unexpected, and it forced me to really start to examine why my father left the way he did. What were the habits, the behaviors, the mindset? And in that process, I realized that I had inherited consciously, unconsciously, a lot of the ways that my dad was raised and how he was. And that was like, um, being emotionally distant from my wife. That was having a hard time asking for help. That was never fully expressing how I felt or showing any sense of emotion. And in those things that I learned, that I feel like most men in the West are beaten down to be like, this is what a real man is. You got to just toughen up and be all this stuff. I felt like the only time I even could even go to therapy was on a stage. Like that's why they call it scream therapy, and that's not even healthy, right? Like that's part. But so once I realized, again, man, I'm really like my dad in those ways. And if I want to live longer for my son and my daughter, if I want to just live a more like joyful life, I have to get to the root of like, why is it that I think I'm weak if I say I need help? Where is that coming from? Because to me, the now where I'm at in the outside of this journey, the strongest men, the strongest people I know are those that are able to ask for help. Because that takes a level of self love that the society tries to beat out of us. Apples oftentimes don't fall too far from the tree. And I'm the proud son of two teachers. My mother still works for Head Start, and my dad was a community college professor for 41 years. He taught everything from US history to Latin American history, Chicano studies, but he was actively involved in the civil rights movement, Chicano movement in the 60s and 70s. He was one of the first 13 Chicanos accepted at UC Santa Barbara. That was a hub of a lot of the organizing that was happening at the time. And so he instilled in me at a very, very early age the importance of being civically involved, giving back to the community. He would take me to fundraisers and marches and rallies even before I could walk or speak. And so, when I was not even one, he would take me to his lectures, and I would be in the car seat, and he would put me on his desk, and he would just go on these polemics, man. He would talk for hours in front of his students, and he was all animated, and he was gonna will you to care about the world, and that was his purpose. And I was a sponge, man. We learn by watching, not by what people say. And I would just watch him and his passion to like wake people up and remind people who they were, to feel a sense of cultural pride in being whoever you were. Um, that was infectious. That made me who I am. Um, and I am my father's son for sure. And so he never wanted to retire. And I feel like when he retired, and then he started having back problems and wasn't able to run, and his kids moved out. I say in the book, he was like a sailor without a ship. Like he was purposeless because they took all his loves away from him, and that led to his bouts of depression and not doing things to help heal his body. And that coupled with the inability to seek support and verbalize I'm actually doing a lot worse than I'm portraying was the end of this physical life for him. Gender is a construct. And so this is a book about a father and a son, but it's really about energy. And the real toxicity is a system that has conditioned too many men to have these hardened selves. And one of the pillars is in realizing that I was acting like my father was that we're oftentimes, because we're isolated, because we have to have these masks and these hardened shells, we think that we're oftentimes the only one that feels a particular way. And what I've really realized is that the isolation between men is killing us because we are actually going through very similar emotional journeys. And when we think we're not, that's what leads to the highest rates of suicide, loneliness, depression that we see in men today. Because we think that I'm the only one going through this particular like challenging part of my life. And that's just not true. That's not a fact. And so the three pillars, if you will, is the first one is what I'm kind of teasing out is that the West has commodified healing to match capitalism to be that self care, self help books. You have to heal on your own when that just didn't ever work. Like healing is a communal act. Healing is community. Like I literally started crying an hour ago on another interview I did because I read a chapter from my book with my dad's words, and I wasn't expecting that to happen. But obviously, I was holding something that needed to be released. But if I wasn't in a conversation with that other person, I wouldn't have had the chance to heal this morning the way I did. If that makes sense. And then the other piece about it is all of us come from some type of ancestry that's beautiful and rich and connected to a land. And that's why I always tell my friends, like, bro, you're not white. Like, where's your lineage from? Are you Irish? Are you Scottish? And even that, go deeper there. Like, who are the original inhabitants of that land that is now known as Ireland? And then once you know that, how did your people practice? What were the cultural practices to deal with the stress of life? Like we started this conversation talking about we all had like at one point MTV, we all had like one thing. Well, there's cultural practices to deal with stress, and we all have them. But if we don't know who we are, then we're not going to know like, hey, way before this thing called the internet, way before this thing called media, there were things that we did as families, as tribes, as communities that help us deal with life. And if you know that, then the medicine you need is actually within your own DNA, within your own knowledge of self. And the last kind of thing I will share is that the power of nature and the power of the outdoors. If we're in community in the outdoors, take off your shoes, your socks, and just get grounded on the land, like that will help re-regulate our bodies. And like you, I'm an 80s kid, so I grew up on analog. I grew up on cassettes. I grew up on vinyl. And to me, in this moment of digital technology and just the rapid disruption of AI, what a robot cannot do is connect us to the land and connect us to each other in real time. And when we do that, it breaks down all of these binaries. It breaks down this lie that we're the only one. And I think I've been on this halfway through a 25 city tour for this book, and I've toured as a musician, and it's different. It's like now being older and touring with the book, I have a different profound acknowledgement and appreciation for touring because we get to connect with people in such a visceral like way that I've come to know that I'm sharing my story and it is unique to me, but it's universal. And seeing men in particular, like again, I've been touring both urban, rural, Midwest, East Coast, West Coast, red states, blue states, whatever the heck people want to fucking name it. But no matter where I'm at, it's resonating because that's the power of storytelling as medicine. That if we're brave enough to tell our story and true, like authentically, it's going to resonate with someone else, and that may be enough. That's why I love music so much. I see all the stuff behind you because the greatest artists were able to be vulnerable enough, and maybe that's the only place they could be, like you mentioned. But that is literally saving folks' lives. Like that is the magic.